why do you like the open way more? I don't know any names, so you can pick it.
Ada.
I like the open way more because it gets the class to like discuss and think more openly rather than just learning what's in the curriculum and then stopping, because it doesn't like continue the thing.
And this class doesn't need to put their hands up and down, because I know that you don't do that normally. You just listen when there's a break in the conversation and you have something to add, then you add it. Or if you have a question for somebody, then you ask the question. So if somebody wants to respond to what Ada said.
Go for it. Manya, go for it.
I have no reason why I like how Miss Chada teaches. She teaches it openly because she, like, when we have questions about it, she doesn't answer them. She makes us answer them ourselves.
I like the open way better because if we're doing a math lesson, we actually don't do math sheets. We do it all on the board. That's why our board is full all the time.
It is, it's messy.
Or math.
Do you find this messy or confusing, or does it all make sense to you?
It all makes sense.
So I'm going to tell you, as somebody walking in, this is very overwhelming for me. If I read things individually, I understand it, but this is overwhelming for me to just come in. But for you, you're saying that it's not overwhelming, because what?
We do it step by step. So like you understand what's going on. So first we talk and do the question, then we do like a learning goal. So we understand that, and then more ideas come from that. So then we understand it.
Do the colors mean something?
No. Sometimes.
Sometimes.
Sometimes when the questions that Ms. Chada inquire us about makes us understand what the question is asking more, like our learning goal, which like it's saying about we are learning that relationships between dimensions of 2D shapes, parallelogram, triangle, rectangle, can be described, shown using algebraic equations. We are using that algebraic equation to help us make conjectures.
So you know what the purpose of your classroom is about.
Yeah. It's also more fun since we're working as a class, and we're also doing lots of group work, so it gets us more fun.
Instead of doing like individual like worksheets and stuff, which doesn't let us to work our brain as much as we do here.
Yeah, when you like talk to each other, more ideas come out.
So well, the way Ms. Chada teaches, it's not like some teachers who just get you to memorize it and you don't know why it works. Like a lot of times they can just tell you to measure it, but now we know why it works.
Yeah.
You generate your own ideas our own questions by the stuff you learn from the Chada.
That's true. Actually, the magic for me is that they start to generate the curriculum. So they've already gone a step ahead and said, what about volume?
Some of this stuff isn't even grade 6. So you are all okay that you've gone beyond.
Most of the time when like we try to plan something, it goes like the other way because we just plan our own lesson because of our thinking. We think more than the lesson Miss Chada plans.
Mostly.
I just think that, like, I don't really think I'm in grade 6. I just care that we're we're going beyond and that we're thinking like way beyond the curriculum and that we understand because it's more fun too.
So I have another question that's completely unrelated to what I'm going to tell them. I'm going to give them your input. Do grades help you or don't help you?
No. It's the feedback that helps. Feedback's the
When you just get the grade, you don't know. Like, it's not telling you anything. You're like, what did I do wrong? How can I be better? You don't know how to improve on that.
And
but
then
the
if you get
feedback tells
you can know what you can do next time, and then you can get a better grade. But I think feedback is the most important.
Does anybody find the grades matter? Yes.
That's okay.
That's okay. Why?
Because sometimes you want to know how you're doing, and like, so what level you're at. Because then the feedback it doesn't really tell you. The feedback.
Because at the end of the day, you're getting a report card, right? And your parents. How many of you the grades important to your parents? Right. And that's understandable. But to you, most of you are saying the grade isn't as important.
It is important, but not that should not be the only thing that you are looking at. Yeah. So that's why we are not
I
doing.
didn't say not important, but
Yeah.
not as
Not as important.
Sometimes Miss Chana just gives feedback, like in like not like remark with that humor, but she gives us feedback. For example, if we're doing the writing, after she gives us feedback for next time, we do like something similar but not the exact same thing, and then we would work on that. Or we would like look back at the other ones to see what we did wrong, and then we like do like a mini test.
It also helped you to make goals, I would guess, right? So then you know what you need to work.
What Miss Chada does is she gives us a mark, and then she gives us feedback, and how like 3 things we did good, or lots of things that we did good, and then some things that we need to do better.
Which always helps us get better at what we did wrong.
What Miss Chada really does is like, say we're doing this writing and not all of us did like such a good job. Instead of us redoing it, Miss Chada would actually take it up with us.
Good. I have a very important question for you to think about, because now we're into February, so we're into the second half of the year. You probably won't have Miss Chada next year, right? Like, let's be honest. So, you have a different teacher, and the teacher teaches differently, because everybody has a different personality. What learning do you take forward from this year that you apply to that?
I think I would take along the learning goal, because whenever, like, for example, the task A and task B over there, whenever we had like the 3 of us, me, Caitlin, and Aiden, whenever we had problem with task A, we would always go back to the learning goal, and we could use some ideas from there to continue to continue what we were doing.
And we try to make our own learning goal, because some teachers don't like do that, they just skip the task. So maybe we can do our own learning goal and refer back so then it won't.
Good. Or you can ask the teacher, is this what my learning goal should be? Am I learning about this? And you can advocate for yourself. Do you understand what that word advocate means? To speak up for yourself, because you're right. And I don't know if teachers don't have a learning goal, but maybe they're not as explicit in putting it out there for you. So you can advocate for yourself. You now have the tools to say, is this what my learning goal is? Is this what I need to strive to do? And what about grades versus feedback? How can you advocate for yourself with that? If you're saying feedback helps you, how do you do this moving forward? If you, or even let's skip over a few grades. Let's say now you're in a job. What would I have to do to Mr. V if I'm saying, listen, I don't want to wait for an evaluation, which I only get every 5 years. If I want to make sure that I'm doing a good job every day and not wait for my 5-year mark as an adult, how do I take this learning that you're saying helps you here and apply it to my job? Aiden?
What you can do is you can ask for feedback, so you know how you can improve.
You could ask more questions sometimes if you need to, if you don't understand something about this, or like Aiden said,
Good. And that, to me, for myself, tells me that Ms. Chada did a good job. Because it isn't about what she's taught you here, and you need to realize that too. Remember what I said to you yesterday? What tools have you learned this year that's going to help carry you forward next year, and the year after, and 5 years after that? And you need to, that's your job, is to remember that. You advocate for yourself, and for your learning, and for your own improvement, because that is not your parents' job, and that is not your teacher's job, and that is not your boss's job. That's your job.
Because, and I think we have kind of not really explicitly talked about, but we have referred to the fact that it's the skills and the tools of learning that we carry forward, not the content.
Yes.
I mean, any teacher can tell you what the area of a parallelogram is, and you may not even need it for the rest of your life, right? But it's the exploration and the inquiry and the questions. Those are the kind of tools that you want to take with you.
And then how we like how some people explain it.
Mm-hmm.
They explain how it works, and we ask a lot of questions about it.
Mm-hmm.
And then like you write them down,
Mm-hmm.
and then we just look back at it, and then we say, and then we work on the next day work, and it just relates.
You're making all those connections. Okay, dear, last word.
it's also when you don't
Yeah.
Like as a class, it's okay for us to say,
Yeah.
if Ms. Chada tells us it's okay to say, I don't understand this, could you help me?
Mm.
Good. Those are all really good skills. Thank you very much. And I'm going to talk to the publishing company to give them your perspective too, because I was actually surprised.